Hello YouTube and welcome to my first video on this channel. Now, as many of you guys know, my old channel, SupremeToasterTV, which had 129 subs, got terminated. And I'll talk about the reasons later in a future video probably, but this is my first video on my new channel, SupremeToaster Productions, and I have made a Google Slides presentation called Call of War 1942 1.5 Update Review. So let's get started. What is the 1.5 update? The Call of War 1.5 update is an update that Bytro Labs, the developer and publisher, has been working on for several months now. The update has been made available to the public in several test releases, but now the big guns are out. On May 15th, 2020, Bytro Labs rolled out the 1.5 update for all to enjoy. Now, I believe at the time of my recording this, that date was 4 weeks ago. So what's new? Let's talk about unit production. So in Call of War 1.0, nearly all units required an industrial complex to be produced, but in the new update, new production buildings were added to the game. Different tech branches need different buildings for production. For example, tanks require the tank plant, and artillery requires the ordnance foundry. Now, let's talk about the urban focus. In 1.0, production buildings and units can be built anywhere. In 1.5, production buildings and units can only be built in urban provinces, meaning you can only build production buildings and units in the cities. In 1.0, units are separated in production categories based on their armor class. In 1.5, units are separated in production categories based on their production building. This makes building requirements easier to understand. Now, I actually really like this because rather than having like all of the armored units together, it's all like separate so that you can easily find what you're looking for. So production requirements. Upgrading buildings is required to unlock production of higher unit levels. That used to be how it was. Now all units can be produced with the first production building level, meaning if you were to build like, I don't know, medium tanks, you would no longer need level 2 infrastructure or level 2 of the tank plant, because now you can just build it with a level 1 tank plant. So that is quite useful, really. Unit production time increases a lot for higher unit levels, so upgrading the production buildings is highly recommended to reduce production times. Upgrading the production buildings reduces unit production times unconditionally. That's how it used to be. And now, upgrading the production building reduces unit production times until the minimum production time of a unit is reached, at which point it is not reduced further. Each unit has a different minimum production time. So on to the next part. What's new about the buildings? So in 1.5, some new buildings that were added, and they've been the roles have been revised. So a list of all buildings: barracks, which you use to build infantry; tank plant for tanks; naval base for naval units; ordnance foundry for artillery; standard artillery, SP artillery, I believe, and the anti-tank and anti-air; the aircraft factory for aircraft, and there are also the air bases too; and then secret lab for rocket artillery, SP rocket artillery, rockets, all that good stuff. Also, commandos now fall under barracks rather than secret lab. And then you have industry, local industry, and then you have bunkers, your capital, infrastructure, local industry, airstrip, fortifications, local port, building effects, It used to be that most buildings have multiple effects and benefits. Now most buildings only have one or two effects and benefits. Effects and benefits are assigned to specific buildings, and new building types were added to grant specific benefits to provinces. Province separation, it used to be all buildings are available in urban and rural provinces. Now certain buildings are only available in urban provinces, while certain buildings are only available in rural provinces. Now let's talk about resources. Resource distribution. In 1.0, it was that resource production is distributed evenly regardless of the province type. Now it's 75% of resource production is located in urban provinces and 25% is located in rural provinces. Rural provinces produce relatively more manpower. Units require, for the most part, the same resource types to be produced across most tech branches, resulting in higher demand for specific resources. But now different tech branches require different resource types. With resources spread more evenly across all units, resource demand is more evened out. Now I like this change. However, I just wish that we would start off with a bit more resources and such. So yeah. Buildings require, for the most part, the same resource types to be constructed, resulting in higher demand for specific resources. Now it's buildings require different resources, with resources spread more evenly across all buildings. Resource demand is more evened out. Yeah, so I really like these two changes on the right side for production resources and building resources. They really help out even out your demand for resources, and in the long run, I do think that this is a great change. And also for 1.0 resources, research requires the same resources regardless of the unit. Now researches require different resources depending on the production cost of a unit. Oops. Alright, what's new? Unit balancing. In 1.0, most units shared similar roles in the game. In 1.5, unit balancing has been changed a lot, with unit statistics changing for all units. Many units receive distinct roles and are useful in different situations. A more distinct rock, paper, scissors balancing is in place, so the RNG and the unit description of in the unit details provides hints of how to use the unit. Now, this next part is a really big addition. So let's talk about the doctrine differences. In 1.0, there were no doctrines. Unit statistics are the same across all countries. In 1.5, now listen to this very carefully because this is a big change. Each country begins to one of four doctrines, which results in changes to unit statistics, meaning each country has different unit statistics for each unit. On top of general buffs and debuffs that are applied to all units of a doctrine, certain iconic units receive additional buffs to their statistics depending on the doctrine. So basically, what they're saying here is the doctrine will affect how buffed or debuffed the unit is depending on which country you're playing and what doctrine it falls under. Some new units that have been added exclusively to the COW 1.5 version are the Flying Bomb, the Attack Bombers, Rocket Artillery, and SP Rocket Artillery. So the Attack Bombers are effective against, I believe, unarmored targets, and the Tactical Bombers are effective against armored targets, and then the Rocket Artillery is effective against unarmored targets, while Standard Artillery is effective against armored targets. SP Rocket Artillery, which is faster than Rocket Artillery, basically does the same thing, and SP Artillery, faster than Standard Artillery, basically does the same thing. Nuclear units in 1.0, we have nuclear battleships, nuclear aircraft carriers, and nuclear submarines that were available in the game, and nuclear sea units have been removed from the game for more historical consistency in 1.5. Now, for unit abilities, these are the new units that have altered abilities. Commandos are now stealth units. Paratroopers can be converted back into a plane after dropping on a province, so I believe you can reuse them. Rockets and flying bombs can now deal damage to friendly units as well, which they couldn't in the past. So you're going to have to be careful when you fire your rockets and your flying bombs so that you don't take friendly fire. And then armored cars and motorized infantry can reveal stealth units on higher levels. Now, for armor classes, this is also an important change. In 1.0, there was only one armor class that existed for armored units. Now, the armored class has been separated into light armor and heavy armor to enable more unit roles and counters. Now, let's talk about research. So, unit upgrading. Units on the map upgrade automatically when a new level has been researched. That's how it used to be. Now, units on the map don't upgrade automatically. They can be manually upgraded to the highest currently researched level via a new unit command. Upgrading costs 50% of the resources and takes 50% of time that the target level requires for production. So you can click on a unit itself and upgrade it, but you'd have to spend resources. And on the right side, I've shown images of how units can get upgraded later in the game per doctrine. And then doctrine differences. Each country belongs to one of 4 doctrines, which alters the day of availability of many units. Some units are unlocked later, and some are unlocked earlier, depending on the doctrine. So, I don't know, you could unlock like rockets before a different country if you have like different doctrines or something. I'm just saying off the top of my head. I don't know if that's true, but it could be. Nuclear power. It used to be that the nuclear power research is required to research atomic bombs. Now the nuclear power research has been removed. Atomic bombs can be researched directly at a higher price. So as for the other mechanics, victory points used to be scattered across all province types. Now they are concentrated in urban provinces. For the game and normal game rounds had no end set end date. And now all game rounds have a maximum runtime depending on the map size. Small maps 5 weeks, medium max 7 weeks, big maps 10 weeks. If not one earlier, the highest ranked player or coalition wins when the end date is reached. Level progression. Used to be that the level progression for a unit or building statistics as well as the unit cost or building cost is rather flat or non-existent. Now nearly all statistics and costs for units and buildings follow a clear progression when leveling up from cheap to expensive costs, from short to long times, and from weak to strong statistics or effects. Now this is also a change that you really should note. Now in 1.0, a war penalty to province morale is applied when being at war with other nations. However, now no war penalty is applied to province morale anymore, meaning that if you were at war with one country, you would take a 5% hit to your morale. Now that no longer happens. Distance to capital. The distance to capital morale penalty for province caps out at -40 but rises faster. However, now the distance to capital morale penalty for province caps out at -60 but it rises slower. Resource upkeep. Provinces and some buildings have upkeep and drain resources. However, now provinces and buildings have no upkeep anymore. So you don't have to disable your barracks to have higher food production. In turn, the unit upkeep is increased and is now dependent on the unit production cost. Now your stack limit. You really should pay attention to this part. So in 1.0, the damage output of units is limited on a per unit type basis. When a certain number of the same unit types are part of the same army, the damage efficiency of these units is lowered. The limit varies for each unit type. However, now the damage output of an army is regulated by a stack limit for the whole army. When more than 10 units are part of an army, no matter their type, the damage efficiency of the army is lowered. So this is about like the SBDE. So if you have more than 10 units, your army that in that stack, they won't do their maximum damage efficiency. So that's basically what they're saying here. Now for damage distribution, in 1.0, when an army takes damage, the incoming damage is applied only to one unit per unit type, resulting in units dying one by one. However, now, when an army takes damage, the incoming damage is shared among all units in the army. Units only start to die when the army condition drops below 50%. Now the distance, okay, I already went over that. Now let's talk about combat intervals. In 1.0, ground combat happens every 60 minutes. However, now ground combat happens every 30 minutes, so the battles happen faster, basically. They end faster. So basically the game just goes faster in 1.5. The speed penalty. Units are not slowed down when damaged. However, now when the condition of a unit drops below 50%, its movement speed is lowered. When nearing 0% condition, the speed is reduced to 50%. Battle results. In 1.0, the combat results are rather unpredictable, and the damage output of a unit can vary drastically based on luck. In 1.5, the combat results are more predictable because the damage output of a unit can only vary within a range of plus 20% and negative 20%. I like that. Graphics and usability. In 1.5, various interfaces and graphics have been reworked and polished. Capitals and urban provinces now stand out more on the map. Resource icons on the map are displayed in a cleaner style. The province list can be filtered for urban provinces. Historical unit names are highlighted in the production menu. Doctrines are highlighted in various menus. So that would be it. Now the credits. Bytro Labs. They're the developer and publisher of Call of War 1942. They developed and published the game. So big shout out to them. And over here you can find a link to the forum where I got all of this information, which I'll leave the link to both the forum and this Google Slides presentation in the description. I also want to thank Demon Lord from Discord. He provided me with the link above. And then my channel link you can find here, as well as my Call of War username and my Discord username and tag number. I created this presentation, and if you guys enjoyed the video, then make sure to like and subscribe. And thank you for watching. And don't forget to share.